Well, hello, my friends, and happy Sunday to you. Look at this. This piece was so much fun, and it just felt like home to me. It just felt like me. So here's the supplies that we'll be using today. And I started out on a 12 by 12 MDF board, and I pulled out a bunch of vintage papers that are all part of collage packs that'll be available. And the link to the collage packs and all of the supplies will be listed on the blog, and the link to the blog is down below in the YouTube description box. So I have got my vintage papers out here, and I'm really being intentional about where I'm placing everything because I want the upper areas to be lighter, and I place darker papers down below. But this is the first layer of papers, and so I'm trying to place them where I think that I might want to see some words and different things like that. But again, I'm going to add some more papers over the top of this to really add to the story, the texture, and all that kind of thing. So I've got all my initial layers of papers down, and I'm going to add some vintage wallpapers in blues to really help accentuate the fact that that's sky and clouds, and really try to bring in more of that horizontal a viewpoint in the piece. And so that I've added the blue vintage wallpapers. So then I'm going to grab some more vintage papers to really tell the story. And a lot of it is different writings, that have certain words or things like that that might tell the story even more. And I've grabbed some vintage postcards with vintage postage. This piece here has a letter, like a welcoming letter to a friend. All the different things that to me are really creating the story of this piece and the meaning behind it. And so I'm placing those in spots that I think will show up. So I'm being very intentional about what I'm putting down at this point. So my lighthouse stencil that I wanted to use, it was actually a little too small for the 12 by 12, but I didn't want to go smaller because I really wanted to play and have fun with that background. So I took my archival ink and potting soil and a regular piece of copy paper and just stenciled it out on the copy paper, and then took it to my printer and enlarged it. And so I'm just checking out to make sure the size is okay. So now your stencils, you can use every kind of stencil you want. So I pulled out these two initial colors, and the one color was clogged, and so I went on in search of another color, and in the process I squirreled a little bit, and I did my artist ADD, and as I was digging through, I found all these other colors that I haven't used in a while, and I was like, yes. So my color plan shifted a little bit when I started seeing new colors. So I'm working with some Arteza colors and a bunch of different ones. But I've got my brayer out now, and this color is Buttermilk by Americana, and I found some paint from Arteza called Cold Gray, and it is fantastic. So this is in my bunch of paints that I've had from Arteza that I haven't used yet, and I thought, well, I'm going to try it. It is fantastic. I'm going to use this color over and over and over. And then I found another color called Sky Blue, and I mixed the Sky Blue and the Buttermilk together, and it almost made it a little teal-like, and again, kind of that sky. So I'm working with my brayer, and I'm going horizontally to really represent the skyline in just bits and pieces. I want it to be really light because I want to be intentional about making sure that the paints show through. So it's really representational of the skyline, very, very subtly. So this is the Sky Blue, Cold Gray, and now I've pulled out some Naples Yellow and some Golden's Indian Yellow hue, and I kind of mix those together because I'm really searching for some of the colors that you might see in a sunset or a sunrise, that kind of thing. And again, working horizontally to represent clouds and sky and that kind of thing. All of the painting that I'm doing, with the exception of the brayer work, the paint is watered down, so it's very, very light because, again, those papers are telling the story of the piece. So I pulled out some Van Dyke Brown and some Prussian Blue in golden. Oh, nope, not yet. This is actually Lucas's paint in permanent violet, and I mixed a little bit of that cold gray with it. Oh, so good. So good. And again, that purple is again there for that kind of sunset or horizon kind of feel. Now I'm pulling out the Van Dyke Brown and the Prussian Blue. And I don't use Van Dyke Brown very often, but again, it was in my tub of paints as I went searching, and I thought, oh, yay, new shiny things. And I mixed that a little bit with the Prussian Blue to give it a kind of a blue hue, like some reflection from the water, that kind of thing. That was my thought. And again, it's all very watery, watered down, wet, very wet brush, so the paper still shows through, and I'm not pushing that back too much. So now I'm going to just kind of bring all of the layers in the sky together. And I'm using my pressed paper technique, and this is a piece of parchment paper that I've just put a little bit of gesso on, and it gives me a lot of control to be able to really kind of softly push the background back, bring it together, unify it without taking away much from the background itself. Doing that on the parchment paper also gives you some interesting pattern and things like that. So I love this technique. Now I just, with a paper towel, my rag, I just kind of go over it a little bit and pick it up and just kind of soften it a little bit more. And now I'm going to put my copied image of my stencil down with my matte medium. And I wanted to really age this up a bit, but I didn't want to do a full glaze. I wanted it to, again, be really, really soft and really kind of watery. I liked the watery, watercolor look that was happening. So I just did little bits here and there with very, very watered down paint. And this is the Van Dyke Brown that I'm using. And I'm being really inconsistent with where I'm putting it because I want it to feel really organic. I want to go back over some of that white copy paper and let some of that Van Dyke Brown, all watery, kind of sit there so that it really looks watercolored. So now I'm on a kick with my Stabilo all pencil, and I'll get off of it here in a little bit, but I've just been enjoying it. And it kind of really lends itself to that watery watercolor feel, very ethereal, soft. So I'm using that to just kind of define my lighthouse and kind of bring everything together, really start my shading process. I will add, of course, I will go to my charcoal pencil just to add some finer details. But the Stabilo all pencil really works well for kind of that watery colored defining thing. So now I've got my boats and birds stencil here, and I wanted those birds, and I was going to just stencil them right on. And I'm using the potting soil archival ink again, but I was unsure exactly where I wanted them. And so that's why I love stenciling on tissue paper, because it gives you so much freedom to just kind of figure out, okay, where do I really want my items, my objects, different things like that. And I went around, I changed things a few times, and if I'd stenciled them on just right onto the piece, I would have been stuck with what I'd done. So I love using this technique. So now that I've got the birds down, and they're super subtle, and that's exactly what I wanted, I'm just coming underneath their wings with my Stabilo all pencil and really giving them some shading and some definition so that they stand out just a tiny bit more. I didn't want them to be too much. I wanted it to really blend and match with the feeling of the piece. And so I'm just adding just a tiny bit here and there to really kind of make them stand out. Now I'm just going to come back in and define the lighthouse just a little bit more with my charcoal pencil. I can't get real clear, crisp lines with the Stabilo all in the watered down stage. So I'm just going to come back and really kind of sharpen a few things up, not take away from that kind of watery feeling that I have from the Stabilo, but just really kind of bring more pop to the focal point. So now I'm just going to add some shading around the edge of the piece with this black soft pastel. Then I'm going to add my my quote, the whole inspiration behind this piece. And I really, again, wanted it to blend in. I didn't want it to be the focal point. I was just positively loving how the piece was looking. So I worked really hard to blend this in. I just printed out the quote on a piece of copy paper and then went back over it with the same colors that I used in the background and tried to make it feel cohesive. And I think it worked pretty well. And then just added some blues around it and kind of filled out the rest of the water behind the lighthouse to kind of bring it all together. And that is it, my friends. I hope that you enjoyed today's project. If you did, subscribe and like. If you have any questions with regards to techniques or anything like that, leave them in the comments below and I will do my best to get back to you. Stick around for the conversation at the end. It's a good one. It's always good. I just love sharing my time with you. And I hope you will come back and I will see you next week. Hello, my loves. Happy Sunday to you. This just went, I had an idea and it happened exactly like I wanted it to. And I love it when that happens. And I love it when you are creating something and you know, like in your soul, that it is right, that it feels like you, that it's just everything is good. And that is exactly what happened here. I had an idea and it went according to plan, which very rarely happens. The one thing that did happen was in the midst of, and I shared in the video, in the midst of searching for colors, I totally squirreled and picked up other colors that I haven't used. My Arteza color in the sky blue and the mixture of this buttermilk color for the backgrounds was just delicious. I started out with some papers, and that I found that that wasn't enough in what I wanted, so I ended up adding. But all of the papers are from collage packs, vintage wallpaper, ledger, postcards and stuff like that. They're all in the collage packs. And then the two stencils that I use, Boats and Birds, and the Take Me to the Water stencil 2, I think it is. Those will be on sale this week. And speaking of sale, by the time you see this, hopefully all the orders will be out from birthday week, and I just want to say a big, big thank you from the bottom of my heart for all your love, for all your support. This was the biggest birthday sale ever, and we are just so incredibly grateful, and you are going to get some good stuff, some good stuff. So I just want to talk really quickly. I put my word in here. I wanted it to be in the background. I wanted it to be there, but I wanted it to be in the background because I was just absolutely loving how this was looking and the backgrounds and all that stuff. One of my assistants, one of the great things about being like the quote lady when I'm creating is I get quotes from people all the time, friends and everything. Say, oh, I found this quote, and so I get a lot of inspiration that way. But one of my assistants came this week and said, this was in a fortune cookie. And I read it, and I was like, immediately this whole piece kind of came together. And it says, faith is knowing there is an ocean when you can only see the stream. And it kind of really resonated with me, and I just kind of thought about it over and over and how this piece came together, and the lighthouse, how crucial it was, because how we need that light, that guiding light in our lives to kind of navigate the waters of when we're just unsure. But what I want to share with you today about this quote is that in my life, there have been more times like this than I would like to count, about only being able to see the stream, and but really knowing that there's an ocean out there, I just can't see it yet, and having faith in myself, and for me it is in the divine, a higher power. For you it could be something else, but having that faith of knowing that things are going to be okay even when I can't see it. And let me tell you, there have been some dark days, and I talk about that a lot. And when it says when you can only see the stream, sometimes the stream wasn't even a stream. It was a dry creek bed. It was dry, and I can remember thinking many times in my life, Lord, I'm in the desert, and I've been in the desert for a long time, and I am thirsty, and I need to move on to, where the water is. And what I want to say is that if you're in that place of where things are tough and it's hard, and you know that there's bigger things for you, that ocean is out there, but you can't see it. Maybe you can't see it, and you just don't even know how to get there. I want to say, hang on and stay faithful to your plans, to your dreams, to the divine. Stay faithful to what is calling you, your heart's desire. Stay faithful. Stay on the path. Continue to do the work that it takes to get to our goals, to our dreams. I mean, you just can't say, hey, I'm going to do this, and poof. I mean, that just is not reality. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of trial and heartache and all the things that go along with growing and learning and challenging ourselves to steps outside of our comfort zone. But eventually we get to see the water. We get to walk up to the water's edge and see the vastness and the beauty. It happens. And that's not to say that it stays there all the time, and that we don't go back into another place where it's really, really uncertain and we can't see that grand ocean water. But I want to just encourage you to stay faithful to what is calling you. Too often, and this is a proven study, that most entrepreneurs, and I say entrepreneurs because that's how I study entrepreneurship all the time, and how to be better in my business. And this doesn't just apply to business, this applies to life. But most of the time, we give up right before there is a breakthrough, right before things change, right before you're able to cross over. We end up giving up, and businesses fail, and relationships fail, and our dreams, we let go of our dreams right before we actually get a chance to see it happen. And I don't want you to miss out on what you're longing for, what you're striving for. And I want you to hang in there, my loves. And if you're in that place where you've crossed over and you're seeing the ocean and all the wonders and wonderful things of what it has taken, your journey and getting there, celebrate it, my loves. Rest up. When you're in that good place, rest up, because who knows what's on the next horizon? Who knows what season we'll be in, the next time around. But celebrate that, rest, and really be present in that moment of that wondrous ocean. All right, my loves, I hope that your Sunday is wonderful, and I hope that wherever you are, that you are either standing strong in what you believe, hanging on to that faith, or celebrating that beautiful ocean that lies before you, and resting in this present moment. All right, my loves, have a wonderful Sunday, and always, always know that you are loved.